So, I'd like to thank the Academy and President Ken Pruitt for this very, very special honor, not only to be inducted as the Charlotte Perkins Gilman Fellow, but to be ushered into this exceptional company by the great, great Dorothy Roberts, my sister-in-law in work and in passion. I'm overwhelmed and awed by this moment and by the spectacular company that I've been inducted with. Of course, I stand here atop many shoulders of people very dear to me, mentors like Barbara Arnwine, colleagues like Devin Carbato and Paul Butler, allies like Heidi Hartman, family like my Aunt Dottie, who flew here from Atlanta, my sister Lisa Gissendaner, who came from Canada, staff, Emmett O'Malley and Jira Asim, AAPF board members, and so many friends, some who've flown in from California, Sony and Robert Whedon. It really is just a thrill to be in this room with so many people who've inspired me over the years. Now, a lot of people at this moment thank their parents, and I'm not going to disappoint. I'm going to thank my parents as well. But I'm going to be a little bit more concrete about why I'm thanking them now. I was lucky to be born into the family of Marion Williams Crenshaw and Walter Clarence Crenshaw. But I have to tell you the truth, I didn't always think I was the lucky one. In fact, to be totally honest, there were times that I felt positively unlucky to have been born into that family. So they were part of a generation that we like to call the race men and the race women of the 20th century. They were the strivers, the thinkers, the resistors. They were preparing their children for opportunities when it wasn't entirely clear that these opportunities would ever really come. And in part of that preparation, they used to require that my brother and me together would come to the table every night with some thought about what we'd seen in the world today. Some comment about our experience, some way that we would talk back to the experience rather than simply allow it to wash over us. It was a burden, I have to tell you, and it was one that my friends used to tease me about all the time. They said, this was the burden of being a teacher's kid. You have to study for dinner. And that is a burden that I ultimately came to see as one of the main factors that turned into a lifelong habit of always asking the why question. Now, I credit them not only for encouraging me to think critically at all points in my life, but I also credit them for not shutting it down when I turned this critical back talk onto them. So, duly emboldened, I challenged the rules in the household whenever I thought that they created an injustice. Like when my father downstairs would call me from 2 stories upstairs to come down to change the television set for him in the days before a remote control. Now, I would ask, well, why do I have to be the remote control? And to every response, I would ask another question until the ultimate reality was revealed, because I said so. Now, my talking back didn't change things most of the time, but the fact that they had to admit the arbitrariness of the rule was often enough for me. So they said even back then that I was going to become a lawyer, and I guess it stuck. I suppose then that I would have to plead guilty to the charge that my questioning was always utilitarian, arising from some injustice that I thought that I witnessed, something that I thought I experienced that didn't jive with the stated commitments of the institution that I was in, at the time the family, or later social and other institutional commitments. 30 years ago, that tradition of utilitarian questioning was activated in the face of stories that I encountered in looking at law cases on black women. Stories by people like Emma DeGraffenreid, a black woman whose lawsuit alleging both race and sex discrimination against her employer was dismissed by a district court. Now, the why question that I raised from that story led directly to fashioning a conceptual tool to better see what that court didn't see, that racism and sexism were not exhausted by simply the experiences of black men and white women. A better story needed to be told to reveal the way that law rationalized inequalities that were faced by black women in the workforce. I thought intersectionality was a tool that could help me tell that story. Now, intersectionality is now ubiquitous, that I'm told. Some people think it is. But from the current policy terrain, I sometimes wonder if we are still pre-intersectional. When it comes to the unique social position that black women face, more times than not as heads of households, current frameworks about race, about class, and gender often leave them unincorporated in the same way that Emma DeGraffenreid was left unincorporated into anti-discrimination law. Here, my why questions once again prompted the spirit of talking back against the exclusion of women and girls from discourses like the school-to-prison pipeline, from discourses around mass incarceration and police violence. This talking back led to Black Girls Matter and Why We Can't Wait and Say Her Name. And yet, I can't say that the whys and the talking back stop there. I was reminded of another why when the recent college admissions scandal broke just a month ago. What came to mind for me as I watched pundit after pundit debate the culpability of well-resourced parents gaming systems for their children's benefit was the story of Kelly Williams Bolar, a black woman who grew up just 20 minutes away from me in Akron, Ohio. Williams Bolar, you might recall, was a low-income school aide who chose to send her children to her father's home, where they could attend a school that met all 26 of Ohio's educational standards, as opposed to the one in her neighborhood that provided just 4. And for this decision, she was arrested and charged with theft. Now, if we call Kelly's effort to do what wealthier parents have done theft, then we are taking as an unalterable given all of the ways that she, as a low-income, single black mother, was left on the losing side of almost every significant identity-based negotiation that shaped her life. From the responsibilities of custodial parenting, to the low wages that she had to settle for, to the decapitalized neighborhoods that she and others were forced to occupy, to the manner of distributing educational opportunity. All of these are structures and rules, just like those that limited Emma DeGraffenreid's opportunities. My passion now is to extend critical race theory and intersectionality into this unincorporated terrain so that at some point in the future, the sanctioning of Kelly's attempt to free her children will be recognized as being no less misguided than criminalizing the self-liberation of slaves who ran away and their crime was called theft. These places of intersectionality and failure now occupy the daily homework that my parents had me do. I am eternally grateful to them and to the many colleagues who've supported me all along in doing so. More than anything, I'm grateful to those early days of back-talking at the dinner table, the way they helped me get a head start on what my namesake for my fellowship, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, called my real job. In her autobiography, Gilman writes, "The first duty of a human being is to assume the right functional relationship to society. More briefly, to find your real job and to do it. I was lucky to be set on that pathway and to be granted access to the resources I needed to do my real job. But alas, at this point, it's unclear whether someone like me coming along today would actually still have those opportunities. The challenge is real, and it is now, which, in conclusion, leads me to an addendum to Gilman's quote. The second duty of all human beings is to make sure that all people have the opportunity to do the jobs they're meant to do. There is more work left to be done, not all of which could be done at a dinner table. Thanks for listening to my back talk, for acknowledging it, for welcoming me into this space, knowing, of course, that I will continue to do it. Thank you.